When we think of the mockumentary style of films or television shows, the first thing that probably comes to mind is The Office. But it was nowhere near the first example with the mockumentary, going back to the 20th century. While mockumentaries are popular in sitcoms, they aren't uncommon in films, and this video is specifically to highlight the art that is the 1999 satirical black comedy, Drop Dead Gorgeous. Beauty pageants are no stranger to television, especially not from a viral moment coming out of one. There's reality shows and documentaries that give us more of a behind-the-scenes look at that life. So curiosity is there for films about this subject. Before we talk about Drop Dead Gorgeous, I have to talk about a movie that seems to be a key influence, one that it was compared to when it was released. 1975's Smile. The film was directed by Michael Ritchie, who wasn't a stranger to comedies. It's a satirical film that takes place in Santa Rosa, California, depicting the various personalities at a beauty pageant titled The Young American Miss Pageant. The two main characters are Bob Freelander, who is a judge at the pageant, and Brenda DiCarlo, who is the pageant director. We only really know a few of the girls, two being Robin and Doria. The biggest difference between Smile and Drop Dead Gorgeous is that Smile is more subtle in its humor. The name of the film, Smile, plays into this, as at the end of the day, pageants are a performance and you have to fake it till you make it. Just gotta keep smiling through it all. One thing that is important to mention in regards to Smile that isn't as talked about in Drop Dead Gorgeous is how much the men in Smile are a large part of it, and this idea that the pageants are for the men in the town. With regards to Bob Freelander, when he talks to Brenda about judging the pageant, he asks her if any of the girls are lookers. An inappropriate question. Then later on, he takes the girls' photos home, and his teenage son takes a look at the photos as well. This leads to little Bob getting his friend and a classmate with a camera to try and take photos of the girls naked and sell them to other students. I think about how the son was called Little Bob. Even when he was caught, he really wasn't punished. Also, like father, like son, Little Bob doesn't see the girls as people. Little Bob gets a singular photo, and the photo gets passed around, never destroyed by the adults that view it. It ends up in the possession of the police officer at the end of the film. When the girls are fulfilling their duties before the pageant, they eat a meal with men in this town. The girls introduce themselves, and I can't imagine how awkward it is for teen girls to eat a meal surrounded by older, strange men. There's another scene where the girls are rehearsing the dance portion in front of a juvenile court, which has adolescent boys watching, again playing into how pageants are a performance and not necessarily for the girls, but for the men. To add, the choreographer says to the girls that their job is to go out and perform as professional dancers and make the audience happy. Pageant interviews are an insightful part of the process because the judges get to see the real you. But the girls' answers in this are rather repetitive and rehearsed, talking about how much they love helping others. Except for Robin, who doesn't seem as rehearsed and put together, giving short answers and having the judges really dig the answers out of her. One of the interviewers, a priest, asks Robin about abortion, which these pageants do ask questions about current events. She doesn't give an answer that reveals her views, her most rehearsed answer. She says that she can't vote, so she can't give her opinion on abortion. The judges love that answer, and I think of it as Robin conforming to the system. In Smile, the girls don't see each other as competition. The girls give tips, and there's this feeling of solidarity. We do see one moment where it turns vicious in Smile when two girls plot to ruin another girl's act because she's annoying them. But in general, the girls seemed rather supportive of one another. The film does get dark, like Drop Dead Gorgeous, but it kind of sneaks up on you. Brenda is married and her husband is miserable, an alcoholic, and he hates the pageant. At one moment, he is annoyed with Brenda and she catches him about to kill himself and insults him. He instead turns the gun on his wife and shoots her. You can't help but gasp. She doesn't die, and it grazes her shoulder. Near the end of the film, we are awaiting the results of the pageant. We think the winner will be one of the girls that we've been introduced to, but of the 5 girls announced, only one, Doria, is a character we know. Throughout this moment, the girls are continually smiling, no matter how they're feeling on the inside, and it's kind of a daunting scene. Apparently no one knew the results of the pageant except for the screenwriter, Jerry Belson, and the director, Michael Ritchie, which is why the camera seems to really search for the winner because they had to locate them, as they didn't know where they were. Smile is so captivating because no one seems happy. Everyone seems to be putting on a show, not only the contestants, but the adults around them. This small suburb is captivated by the pageant to bring them some type of joy, some entertainment. But once it ends, it ends. To recap, with Smile, the messages we see are how much pageants are a performance, the role they play in a small town, and men's role in the pageant. Now, on to 1999's Drop Dead Gorgeous. There is an incredible article written about Drop Dead Gorgeous by Louis Petzman for BuzzFeed that I will reference in this video. I strongly encourage reading the entire thing because I'm just going to briefly cover some of the topics mentioned. To start, the screenwriter Lana Williams expressed how her script was based off her real-life experiences. Petzman writes for BuzzFeed, "Before Drop Dead Gorgeous was a failure or a success, it was just a script by first-time screenwriter Lana Williams. The film may read as a larger-than-life satire, but for Williams, it was always a more personal story. Williams was raised in Rosemont, Minnesota, the clear inspiration for Drop Dead Gorgeous, Mount Rose, Minnesota. She participated in beauty pageants throughout her youth, culminating in being crowned Minnesota's junior miss in high school. There was a pageant that everybody did as a junior in high school," Williams told BuzzFeed. "It literally was that everybody does it. Except for a few fry girls didn't do it. When you look back on it, it was wacky. There were crazy talents that everybody did, but you didn't really think much of it." When the director Michael Jan signed on, him and Williams would clash over their different visions for the film. It was a hard process for Williams because she was really new to the whole thing, and there was a lot going on. "There was a lot going on that I don't think she was entirely plugged into, and reasons for things to happen," Jan said. "I think I probably could have been nicer. As a 26-year-old, I was probably a little more like, no, we're doing it this way. What are you talking about? I was maybe a tiny bit insensitive at that time in my life." Williams, who was in her early 30s at the time, didn't mince words when recalling their conflict. "I just found Jan to be a bit of an asshole," she said. "I remember going out in the rain, crying, going to my rental car, like having a full body cry because I felt like, oh my god, this could get away and not turn out the way I see it. There were a couple things like that, and then I pulled myself together." I really didn't favor him. Another disagreement on set was when Williams wanted to cameo as a candy stripper. She was told she was too old for the part, in addition to not wanting her to say any lines because that would save them money. This resulted in her being the third pageant judge who doesn't say a word. Moving on from the disagreements among the director and the writer, let's get into casting. Kirsten Dunst and Denise Richards were recognizable in their own right, with Kirsten Dunst being a child actor known for being in Jumanji and Interview with the Vampire. Denise Richards was coming off another film that's still talked about today, 1998's Wild Things. There was Brittany Murphy, who plays a rather small role, but her effortless charm stands out. And this was the film debut of 6-time Academy Award nominee, Amy Adams. She's so fun in this, and you're left wanting more of her. To round up the cast, the older women you see were played by Allison Janney, Ellen Barkin, and Kirstie Alley. When the film was ready to be released, the director, Michael Jan, noted that the studio wanted the movie to look more like Clueless, and it just wasn't. There was nothing Jan could do to address the notes from the studio, and the film struggled to make money at the box office. The film got numerous bad reviews, some comparing it to other satirical films that came before. In an article written for the Washington Post, Desson Howe mentions how it is neither in regards to the film being a light comedy or dark satire. For the New York Times, Janet Maslin says, "In the guise of sending up beauty pageants, Drop Dead Gorgeous managed to load up on stereotypes, sneer smugly at Minnesota, stage a scene in which beauty contestants vomit en masse, and makes its audience wince through what may be a record number of miserably unfunny jokes." For Entertainment Weekly, it was rated a D. Lisa Schwarzbaum saying, "Satire can withstand a lot of abuse before it wilts into mockery, especially when the subject is something as rich as a teen beauty pageant in Heartland America. A cheap cut, glass tiara of a booby prize then goes to Drop Dead Gorgeous for messing up so utterly against the delectable smile and the positively true adventures of the alleged Texas cheerleader murdering mom." Like I said, brutal, but the film isn't all that bad. To begin the film, the interviewer for the documentary asks if most people would say teenage beauty pageants are a good idea. That's the pinnacle question. Are pageants worth what comes with it? This film's humor is definitely more in your face, wanting to make sure you understand what they're going for, and is a product of its time. Some things don't age well, specifically the character Hank, who is called an offensive slur repeatedly because of his disability. With the mockumentary style, we hear the girls' perspectives and really understand who they are and what they bring to the pageant. This small town in Minnesota is shaped by this beauty pageant, and that's what the focus is. Girls have been looking forward to this moment for their entire lives.
She's been preparing to be a beauty queen her whole life. She got rid of her dialect, took singing and dancing lessons and that sort of thing, and her mother didn't want her to, I forgot the line Kirstie has in this, "We want our daughter to sound like she's from nowhere," or something like that. It would be better. So that's why I don't have an accent in it.
The girls I will focus on in this video are Lisa, Leslie, Amber, and Becky. When the girls are introduced, Becky has music play in the background, while none of the other girls do during their introduction. The violin instrumental represents royalty and how different she was from the other contestants. Becky is the daughter of the pageant director, and her mother's excited for her daughter to follow in her footsteps. Becky seems to know how to position herself in front of the camera.
My character, Becky, has been conditioned since she was a little girl to become a beauty queen. And when you meet her mother in the film, you know why she's the way she is. I mean, she wants to be the best, and she wants it all, and she'll do anything to have it all. But she's justified because it's something she's been conditioned to do.
When we get to Becky's house, it contrasts the other girls with not starting off in the intimacy of their bedroom, learning more about them through what's on the walls. Becky and Gladys are interviewed in their living room, both seeming polished. In the interview, Becky's dad is also there, and he contrasts them with him seeming more relaxed. The interview portion has Becky come off very rehearsed, saying how she would want her mother to be president, and mentions world hunger and world peace, which are talking points. This reminds me of how Smile tells us this is all a performance. The plot is driven by these unfortunate mishaps, beginning with one of the contestants, Tammy, having her tractor explode while she's riding around in it. Tammy was the first target because she was the only one that had been proven to beat Becky in something, president of the gun club. Amber's crush dies in a hunting accident. Her home is blown up, which lands her mother in the hospital. One contestant gets hurt while rehearsing her talent, and Amber's costume gets stolen on the night of the pageant. Throughout the film, Amber suspects something malicious is going on. Relating to the murders and accidents in the film, this represents how the pageant is about sacrifices and what you're willing to do to win. We see this through last year's pageant winner, Mary. She's anorexic and in a wheelchair cared for by a nurse. The crown keeps you frozen in time, which we also see with Becky's mom, Gladys. She won as a teenager and is still talking about it. Her wanting Becky to win is so that she can relive that experience in some way. I think there's something tragic but beautiful about making beauty pageants be the setting of terrible actions. We are told that the beauty pageant's theme is proud to be an American, and every year it's some variation of that, which is just critiquing what exactly do beauty pageants stand for. In addition to commenting on the cycle that beauty pageants can be, it could also be a way to have you stuck in your hometown. The performance by Becky where she sings "Can't Take My Eyes Off You" is shocking as Becky dances with Jesus. It's chilling, and you can't look away. It represents how Becky knows what to do to stay in the audience's mind and appeal to the judges. The song doesn't tell us anything about her. Compare that to the other girls' talents, it expresses them in some way. Hers, not so much. When Becky comes out the winner, she has given up the most. Her mother's life revolved around having a daughter to follow in her footsteps. Compare this relationship to Amber and her mom. Amber did the pageant because of her mom, but Amber's mom sees her as her own person, and sees the pageant as a way for Amber to get out of town. Becky doing pageants is a way for her mother to live through her.
I don't think that either one know what love means. I think that probably, I don't even know if they see each other really during the day. They don't. I think Gladys goes off and shops for her and brings the clothes back, and she goes upstairs and tries them on, and she may parade around for her a little bit, and she goes, "That's good, that's out, in, good, all right, good, bye, all right, good." I think she's so aloof to what's going on around her that I don't think she even notices that she has a daughter.
Adorable, lovely, multi-talented Kirsten Dunst plays the good girl, the pretty girl, the talented girl, the girl who deserves to win. And she doesn't. And she has a very supportive, loving mom who might be a little off. Might not be what we would consider a good mother on the outside, certainly, but they're kind of the ones with heart. They love each other.
Becky and Amber are opposites of one another, which is reflected through their wardrobe. Becky is shown wearing pastels like purple, pink, and blue, which distinguishes her from her peers. In the interview scene, Becky and Amber are dressed similarly in light blue attire, which probably was to signal their similarities, even though they come off very different.
She hates everyone. She wants to be the best, so she's threatened by Amber, and that's her competition, and she knows it. So she just doesn't like her, and she'll do anything to win.
In her pageant performance, she's wearing a long poodle skirt, which goes with Becky's style seeming more vintage. In addition, Becky will coordinate with her mother wearing similar clothing, again following in her mother's footsteps. Amber wears different shades of blue and gray. At the pageant, her original tap costume contrasted her past wardrobe with being bright red and sparkly. She ends up wearing Lisa's costume, which was more of a suit. Becky's style seemed older, reflecting her mother, while Amber's was casual, reflecting her individuality. The audience doesn't really seem to care when Becky wins. Becky's mother is excited, even yanking the crown off Mary's head. We've been following Amber, and she was the likable, normal girl. When she loses, the movie feels incomplete. Becky dies with the float blowing up. Becky hints to her mom that something is wrong beforehand, with the float smelling of gas, and she ignores her. Her mother has shown throughout the film that she puts what the crown represents over her well-being. When the float explodes, her mother just says, "We have to go to state." After she's dead, Becky's mom is revealed as being behind the mysterious deaths and accidents. All to say, Becky's mom gave up everything for the crown, and it resulted in losing her daughter. Shakespearean almost. Men are not a large part of the film, restricted to the background, but one character that seems to have boys central to her character is Leslie. In her interview for the documentary, her boyfriend comes up and interrupts her by making out with her. In her interview for the pageant judges, she says that Brent Favors should be president, hinting because she finds him attractive. We find out she's pregnant when she accidentally reveals it to the people working on the documentary. During the pageant, she makes a sexual motion with her Washington Monument hat. Her talent involves around her cheering while men wrestle. Through these examples, Leslie's identity is tied to the men around her. Leslie is shown wearing her cheerleader uniform and some variation of white, which represents innocence and purity, but I think Leslie wearing white is to contrast that. In her last scene, before she is said to have gone missing, she tells Amber if she were to die, to cover up certain places with makeup. It's sad, because covering up the remnants of the men in her life makes it so she wants to get out but doesn't know how. So Leslie, similar to Amber, uses the pageant to get out of town, away from the men in her life. Lisa has played second fiddle to her brother seemingly for her entire life. When Lisa gives her costume to Amber, she says how her parents only had her because her brother, Peter, needed a kidney. Which is sad because a teen girl living her life with only one kidney? That's rough. Lisa's wardrobe reflects how she's in her brother's shadow, wearing darker colors, and I interpret that as some of her wardrobe being hand-me-downs from her brother. She's proud of her brother and his sexuality, which reveals to her father at the end of the film, which rattles him. Therefore, I don't think her clothing represents who she is, as her room is bright purple and displays theater posters. Through the pageant, Lisa was able to come up from underneath her brother's shadow, and figure out who she is in this world. At Minnesota Teen, Amber wins by default after all the girls get sick eating fish and Amber avoids eating it because she listens to something her mother said. Don't eat anything with a house on it. It really was fate for Amber to win. Through Amber, pageants represent the idea of a future, as she wants to be a reporter like Diane Sawyer that did pageants before she came on air. Pageants present girls with the chance to explore their passions.
Well, to Amber, the pageant is like her way of getting out of this small town, Mount Rose. And she just, she wants to be like Diane Sawyer and grow up like her. And, this is the only way that she can get out from being like a trailer park girl, And she wants to become like Diane Sawyer, and she has such higher aspirations and dreams. And the pageant's kind of her only chance to get out of that. Amber always looks at things from the good perspective. Like, I have this one scene where I'm saying to the camera, to the documentary crew, I'm like, yeah, I'm lucky I have an after-school job where I can practice my talent, because she can tap dance on the floor. It's like, it's really easy for her to do that because it's, not carpeting or anything on the floor. So she always looks at things, the good perspective, which is nice about Amber. But, she always gets bad stuff thrown her way, and always, fate goes her way.
At the end of the movie, Amber is on her way to the national competition and the big sponsor files for bankruptcy, so the competition is canceled and the girls come off the bus and destroy the place. Amber is the only one that doesn't, and the girls destroying it represented all that they gave up. Therefore, Amber's life doesn't revolve around the pageant. Nowadays, when you watch a movie or a television show on beauty pageants, they are of the black comedy genre. Just think about recently with TV shows like Insatiable or Queen America. They play into this darkness surrounding pageants, how much one wants to win, and what that does to the girls that are a part of it. With this film now a cult classic, the genre of dark comedy seems to resonate with people, as being a teenager can be a bit funny and a bit darker than what people think. Just look at another black comedy that came out around the same time, Jawbreaker. To conclude, beauty pageants are great media to represent escaping your small town and performing to get out.